speaker, Toastmaster Ryan. Have you ever broken a vase? Do you know that the love that reassembles the fragments is stronger than the love that took its symmetry for granted when it was whole? Allow Toastmaster Ryan to share with you a little about love's fragments. Please put your hands together for Toastmaster Ryan Hazell.
Fellow Toastmasters, yes, good evening. Have you ever suffered the anguish of a fragmented relationship? Relationships are important. Relationships matter. But far too many times we allow relationships to disintegrate and dissolve over relatively small, insignificant issues. At times, situations may arise that make it impossible for specific relationships to continue. For example, when one member of the relationship team is determined to leave, it is often fruitless to keep them boxed into a union. I now publicly declare that many of the situations where relationships appear to be fragmented, they can all be mended, most of them, if parties are only willing to work together to make things work. Yeah, right. Easier said than done would be the readily response of many. However, if and when we strip away all the pride, all the arrogance, all the unforgiving spirits, we readily discover that the solutions are not so far remote and far-fetched as we initially thought. That doesn't mean that the infractions of the past are totally forgotten. They are just viewed as being behind, and efforts are made to push on to new heights of achievement and accomplishment. This, of course, takes a certain level of maturity, humility, and determination. This is not for the weak or faint-hearted. It is not difficult for each of us to think of a relationship where we have allowed love to disintegrate. In the home, whether in the church, even in the workplaces. Were you the active partner in such a dismantling process? Was it you who made the decision to become distant? Or were you on the receiving end? It is quite possible that we never fully understood the reason or excuse for the creation and sustaining of this division. It may well have been orchestrated by a third party, a bearer or carrier of bad news, who for whatever reason sought to create a wedge between really good friends. Sometimes with the passage of time, we gain new insights into what transpired, and with hindsight, we wish that we had acted differently, more responsibly, even more objectively under the circumstances. In that case, we can consider ourselves to be making progress, and we are ready to pick up the pieces of love's fragments, put them together again. In other cases, we may have absolutely no inkling of what actually happened, yet even then, we could still make good progress if we conclude that what we had was valuable enough to want to put the fragments together again. On the other hand, if our initial reaction was one of repulsion and resistance, we need to ask ourselves whether there is some underlying pride or arrogance there, some undesirable ego issues. We often need to clean and clear such impurities from the surface and allow love's adhesive bond to do its work. Difficulty perhaps, sometimes traumatic, but very much possible. Each of us, and I include myself, can think of a situation where we have allowed love to disintegrate and dissolve. There are friends and relatives that we have allowed to drift into oblivion. Sometimes intentionally, but so often it happens even without us being conscious of the drifting apart. So often it happens even without us being conscious of the drifting because we are so busy with our own affairs and aspirations that we lose sight of the precious sweet times that we once shared with specific and significant others. These are all facts of life, but even amidst our hectic schedule, we should ask ourselves whether we need to take corrective action today in some of these situations. Now is the acceptable time. Are there visits that we should make? Are there letters that we need to write? Is there an email to be sent? Is there a photograph to be shared? We must ask ourselves these questions and provide honest, objective answers. And then more importantly, we need to determine when we will take these corrective actions. Because remember, delaying the action weakens the resolve. Now is the time to take corrective action, driven by the strong love that lies within each of us. Perhaps we will never get back to that old place of warmth and comfort, trust and commitment, but that the love that reassembles the fragments is greater than that love which took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. Madam Toastmasters?